Welcome back to another update on the restoration process of the Muffler Man Indian from Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. This week we passed the halfway mark on sanding the giant. Sanding this Muffler Man may be the most time-consuming part of the entire restoration, but it is also the most important. If we don't do a good job on the sanding, future layers of paint won't last as long or look as good. Every time we restore Muffler Man, I always say this is my last one, and that's mostly because of the sanding, and it's so much work, and it's dusty. You guys saw pictures of the shop right before we brought the Indian in here. It was so clean, and now everything has got dust all over it. It's practically a different color in here. But because it's so dusty, we take precautions. We use safety glasses. Ear protection, very important with sanders going constantly for hours on end. These are our dust masks, our breathers, respirators. They are coated in dust. These things, I can't even, I never cough, I never get drunk in my nose, so that's how well these work. We would probably die if we didn't have these. And the troublemakers are these guys here. We basically use two sanders. This is our bigger one. This is for the bigger smooth areas. You see it has Velcro on the bottom. These pads go on the Velcro. We swap them out maybe every 10 minutes. We could go longer, but it slows things down when they get dull. This is a fresh one. All the grit on there, you see it? This is one that's been used. It's almost smooth. At this point in our restoration, the Indian is pocketed with yellow spots. And the reason for that is because you're seeing the gel coat. Some of you have been asking, what's gel coat? And as you can see, we've mentioned gel coat a lot. I talk about it all the time, and that's what this yellow is. It's gel coat. But gel coat is basically, when these guys were made, they were made from a mold, a fiberglass mold. And the first thing that's sprayed into that mold when you made an Indian or a cowboy or a Paul Bunyan or whatever it was the gel coat. The gel coat could be any color you wanted it to be, and it also adheres to the curves of the mold very well. And after that gel coat goes down, then your fiberglass and your resin go in. And then when you pull the mold out, you're going to paint on top of the first layer, which is the gel coat. So that's what gel coat is. Thankfully, some of the original paint on top of the gel coat can be left on the giant, and the primer will stick well to it. However, we have to get that layer of paint sanded down to a certain point before the future layers of primer and paint will stick. The Indian will have this speckled look until we put on the primer. This week our graphics department started working on the future paint scheme. Everything is put into the computer so we can test each part of the headdress with different colors. We will create new paint ideas for Iguana to pick from, including his former paint colors as well as what the most realistic, true-to-life, and authentic headdress colors would be. As Iguana decides what colors they want the Indian to have, we will continue the sanding process. A huge milestone this week was finishing and sanding on the front and flipping the Indian over on his back. As you can see, we have finally finished the torso, the top part of the torso with sanding. This has been a huge job. It's taken us over a week. We're done. So tonight's a big night. We're going to separate the legs from the torso and finally get this Indian completely disassembled, and then we'll flip the torso and start sanding the back. Meanwhile, the legs are going to get separated, and we're going to work on them separately. Yikes. 50 years this bolt's been in here. Yeah, make sure you got him, Michael. I don't know if he's going to be top heavy or bottom heavy. Easy. Alright, he's loose. He's out. He's out. Taking the bolts out and separating the Muffler Man went well, but flipping him over was a bit more challenging and took some coordination. We had to be very careful not to damage the delicate headdress or facial features of the Indian. After flipping the giant and starting to work on his back, Michael made an interesting discovery.
Okay, so we just turned the guy over. We just started working on his back. There was one crack that we saw when we did the initial sight look at the guy. So now we flipped him over. I wanted to really investigate that. Started prying on the crack and the piece chipped off. Realized that it was just Bondo.
So this is unique. This is a part of the Indian that you don't see hardly at all. When he's standing up, this is at the top. It's in the back. Everyone's normally looking at the front. Sometimes these Indians are often up against a building, so you never really get to look into the back of the Indian. What's interesting is this head. It looks like all one piece that it goes on the Indian. And Michael explained to you just a little bit ago about the crack in the fiberglass we found here. Well, it's turned out to be a lot more than that, and we finally just solved the mystery. But what happened here is the head was made separately, and it was put on after, but instead of bolting it in like standard muffler men heads, they actually fiberglassed and bondoed it in. So what this is an attempt to make the head, when they put the head on, to make the neck line smoothly up with the rest of the back. When they fiberglassed in the head, there was an unnatural dip and curve here. So what they did is they packed that area with Bondo and fiberglass and then painted over. And that Bondo was coming loose, creating what we thought was a crack when we looked at them for the survey. Our second week of work ended with most of the Indian's back getting sanded, as well as all but about 5% of the legs. Almost completing the legs was a huge accomplishment and means that we are that much closer to our final goal of restoring this roadside attraction back to his home at Lake of the Ozarks. We want to thank all of you for following us on Facebook, for all your likes, shares, and comments. Join us next week for another update.